Raja, hello, welcome. This has been a long time coming. Not too long ago, I talked about the Arc GPU series with my viewership. We did a little bit of a featurette on it, and now I have an unprecedented opportunity to talk to the man himself behind what is one of the, I think, most highly anticipated in the graphic space releases in quite a while, because we're facing right now it's like AMD, NVIDIA, and now you guys. Please feel free to take a moment to introduce yourself for anybody that might not know who you are.
DrLupo, I'm thrilled to be on your show. I've been watching your streams recently, and becoming a big fan, and so I'm thrilled to be here and kind of talking to you about what's coming and all. I'm Raja Koduri. I work for Intel. I've been building GPUs practically all my life, from the first 3D accelerators that showed up in PCs in 1990s. From the DOS days of to Windows to where we are, this amazing kind of world that we live in, where GPUs are giving you photorealistic amazing games. That was a fantasy in 90s, and so I'm fortunate to kind of be in the industry and have opportunity to contribute at various companies along the way. I was at S3 in the beginning days, ATI, Apple. I worked in the Apple graphics team for several years there, and back at AMD, and last 4 years I was at Intel.
You have one of the most impressive resumes in terms of hardware that I think honestly I've ever heard. That is you're covering all the bases. Now, before we get into the nitty gritty, the technical stuff, the back and forth, I'm going to start off with some soft questions because we're trying to have some fun. What do you play right now?
My favorite genre is like fighting games. Like kind of Mortal Kombat, Soul Calibur type stuff, right? And kind of get in and kind of get some energy going, and that's what I do. Just not too much thinking, right? That goes
it's all reactionary, right?
Because most of my brain cells are consumed at other places during the day, right? So that's fighting games are my kind of go-to ones.
That's incredible. So not only are you on the tech side, the hardware side, but you use the things that you help develop on a day-to-day basis, which I think is great, because especially in the gaming industry, sometimes viewers, players, that kind of thing, get a feeling of this person that works on this game that I like doesn't necessarily play it. So we are talking directly to someone who not only helps develop the products, but uses them on a day-to-day basis as well, which is perfect, which is great. But gaming and the industry is not the only thing that you have a strong interest in. My wife told me... You're laughing already because you know what's coming. My wife told me that you have a deep-seated, long-lasting passion for ice cream. Is that true?
Yes. Yes, I love ice cream. Who doesn't?
I don't know anybody. Exactly. I don't know anybody that doesn't. Now, I have to tell you, I am in a situation right now that is going to break a lot of hearts. But I found out a couple years ago that I'm now lactose intolerant. So I can't have dairy-based ice cream, which is tragic because it's like the best ice cream in the entire world. But my wife, who is gluten, dairy, and egg-free, has brought me on this journey of trying new ice creams, which you should have, I believe, 5 Ben & Jerry's go-tos that my wife had selected, along with input from your guys' side as well. Do you want to try? You get to pick the first one. Do you want to try an ice cream right now?
Yeah.
You get to pick the first one. I've got them too. You tell me which one you want.
Yeah, I have them here. Let's start with some, milk and cookies.
Okay.
You got a milk and cookies?
I do indeed. I got it right here. The marbling. I almost feel like an ice cream connoisseur. You know how you see people go to wine tastings and they running around in their mouth and stuff like that to get all the notes.
I don't know if there's a protocol here, DrLupo. We were supposed to kind of like wine, right? Do this.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it against my microphone. Can you tap it on yours too?
Yeah.
That, you know what? That'll count for this. So what do you think? What do you think of cookies and cream? Non-dairy cookies and cream.
I'm surprised because I tried dairy-free ice creams probably like 5-6 years ago. They weren't this good.
Surprisingly, okay, this is a great correlation. The tech industry and the food industry have both made technological advancements in the last 5 years that are absolutely incredible. So there you go.
Maybe there is a Moore's law for ice cream. I need to go.
Perfect. Along the same lines, what games you play? She said fighting games. What's the longest you've ever sat and played video games in one sitting? What's like your record?
It was actually, I had to go all the way back when, I got hooked. It was, I don't know if many viewers know this game. It's called Prince of Persia.
Oh, yeah.
The classic one.
Okay.
On DOS, okay. When I first discovered this stuff. And it was all night. It was basically, right, so I grew up in India, right? And the only place you can get access to a computer is at the university, right? So the university, and you're supposed to be working and doing stuff. There was a PC computer.
You're working, yeah.
Yeah, working. And, during the day, they're your kind of professors and, adults always watching, right? You can't do anything. So after they leave, okay, somebody got a bootleg copy in those floppy disks of Prince of Persia. Yep. We install it at night, right? And all night long, right? It's Prince of Persia, right? And
oh man, that's dedication.
And there's only one PC in the lab, so all your kind of colleagues are watching in the back, and every time you die, they are yelling at you, and it's like it's like so you're doing a performance, not just playing a game. There are people watching behind you, and you can't disappoint them. Right?
That is wildly relatable. I get yelled at on a daily basis every time I die in a game, and that's from chat when I stream. So I know how you feel. Now, we're going to take one more little break before we get into the meat and potatoes of what today is. This time, it's my turn for which ice cream to go to. And I'm going to say pull out the fish food next.
Fish food? Okay. Let me put this back.
I'm getting one. I'm making sure I got marshmallow, caramel, and the little fishies inside. Oh, my gosh. It is so rich.
I have made this very convincing scientific theory, Dr. Lupo once.
Okay.
And, that ice cream makes you smart.
That makes me wonder, do you let your kids eat ice cream all the time then?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go then.
Yeah, there's a bit of truth to it, actually, right? That if ever you want to indulge in a dessert, do it with ice cream.
Now that we've gotten the icebreaker stuff out of the way, talk to me. Give me your elevator pitch, your introduction to ARC and what Intel is trying to do in the graphics industry.
To understand ARC and to understand kind of Intel, right? I'll start with, my biggest passion is to make, the AAA game, whatever game you want to play, be playable on whatever computer you have. We want to lift the baseline up every step of the way. We want to lift the baseline up so that you can kind of, bring everybody along. ARC is Intel entering discrete graphics so that you can have the full range of gaming experiences with Intel hardware and Intel software. And, early 2022, the first flavors will reach you. Right.
Cool. Okay. And I think I speak for everyone too, based on some of our experiences in the gaming industry recently. I think I speak for everybody when I say do what needs to be done to make sure that the release is quality and not rushed, obviously. And I think everybody would agree with that.
Right now, this whole streaming thing that we're doing here, this whole session, I'm actually running on an ARC PC that's sitting kind of, right below me.
So
here
it is
underneath
in
here.
use right now.
In use right now. And, I was, kind of courageous enough to say, hey, let's put all the drivers, let's kind of, do this. And
Let her rip. I mean, you might as well if you have a product that you believe in, which it appears that you do, and I think a lot of people are excited to see the passion behind this release.
Yeah.
Why not? What better opportunity than literally right now to say, yes, I'm physically using the hardware. Are we looking at like production, like this is release level, or are you on like an alpha, beta, prototype style setup right now?
I think we are well past a beta right now, right? We've been sampling this to various customers, our OEM customers that build PCs, so that we've been getting testing from them and feedback from them as well, and ironing out the last bugs, and getting to the levels of where the competing hardware is NVIDIA AMD is. Will take time, right? I mean, it's just that software stuff. Just getting maturity for a new architecture takes time, and we are well on our journey there.
Perfect. Now you mentioned architecture as well as your position within the company. What did it feel like to be part of the process of creating a technology to participate in literally an area that Intel, you mentioned the integrated graphics, but as far as discrete goes, this is big. What was it like sitting in those meetings and going through the process of designing a product where you're competing directly against NVIDIA and AMD?
Bringing that thinking into Intel that, we need one software stack from integrated all the way to high performance graphics, and getting that mindset in was not easy, right? You got to get, it was a cultural transformation, and to do high performance graphics, and things that work very well at low end, right? When you have a really fast engine, right? It's kind of like best analogy is like you have a car, right? And that's the journey that the last 4 years for me is that, I know how to build a faster engine. We're building that and we have that, but then like, everything else around, needs an upgrade as well, right?
I will say the expectations are probably pretty high. What is it like facing that kind of pressure from your seat?
What we said to ourselves like 4 years ago, right, when we started, is that are we just doing another graphics card, right? And then kind of, trying to get money, or are we trying to solve a problem that nobody else is solving, so that like you're kind of completing the whole landscape. So we chose to go after, like, focus on what are the problems that the existing solutions don't solve or don't solve well, right? We noticed from like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, just the sheer number of people that game and stream at the same time is like dramatically
it's pretty
increased,
staggering,
right?
Yeah.
And staggering, and you want to also not just stream, you want to stream with OBS mixes and this and that, and overlays and rendering and this and all the cool
There's a lot
effects
of functionality that all is required from a card that can be difficult to extract simultaneously. Yeah,
exactly, right. So what we see is that if you try to turn all of those effects on in the OBS running on one GPU, it drags the frame rate down, right? You're encoding on it, you're mixing, you're the compositing and all that stuff, right? And you're like, oh wait, is my game important or this important and all that stuff? And we have this kind of technology that we codename deep link, right? Whenever we connect integrated and discrete. So we have done quite a bit of work that when our cards launch, you'll see this feature where streaming is a first class citizen, and the streaming doesn't at all tax your your frame rates in the game you're running, and you can kind of really leverage that integrated graphics and all that stuff, and we have some kind of hardware features as well that help that stuff. So that's one as an example, right? Just to say, hey, focusing on some interesting problems and trying to solve them.
I think it's important too to note that a function like that goes beyond just content creators, because I know a number of people that use things like Discord to share their gameplay screen with other people that they're playing with simultaneously. So even I'm looking at more than just people like myself. The average consumer will benefit from multitask functionality that Deep Link will bring on board. I want to point out too that this is not a scripted thing that Intel gave me to say, because this is a big thing to note for consumers, is that there is consumer, the average citizen that buys a product wants to know that the functions that are being brought on board will help them too. And so there is impact at varying degrees, obviously, but there is impact that Intel is taking on, that they want to help people at multiple levels, and that is a huge deal. I mean, NVIDIA implemented NVENC for their encoding to do slightly similar things, but we're talking about a multi-layer integrative process between CPU and GPU that NVIDIA won't have access to. And this is something that only you guys, and I guess AMD, if you're running on a Ryzen machine with a Radeon card or whatever, they can do things like this potentially too. I apologize that I don't know all of the stuff that their cards are capable of, but it is important to know that you're trying to push into a space that is unique, which is fantastic.
Yep.
And I think people will enjoy that.
And as you pointed out, right, some of the capabilities exist in the systems in various forms, but the effort to combine them, right, and the software effort particularly is a kind of a major heavy lift. Somebody needed to put effort, engineers on it, right, to kind of solve 100%. The problem, right? And it's a difficult thing, Dr. Lupo, and I think for your viewers to understand, because if my card sales are based on frame rates of games, right, and the stuff, right, my business guy just looks at, why are you wasting my valuable engineer time on all of this stuff? Like, give me 5 more frames per second, 10 more frames per second, making it from 120 to 130 frames per second, because that'll make me, slightly faster than NVIDIA at this thing, but that's been the mindset, right? So to kind of change the mindset to, hey, this user experiences matter. And how you market them, how you sell them and all is a challenge, because it's easy to market a number, right? It's like, it's like in the stuff. So, but that's that's what we are passionate about. We'll see, me and my team, I'm not just talking for myself. We are really interested in the community engagement and getting the feedback directly from the community, right? And the stuff like, how do they see, what kind of stuff? Because I think that's the amazing thing that has happened, frankly, right, in the last, several years, where, folks like you and the communities that you guys have and the interactions you have with the gamers and all that stuff, right? It's that real-time interaction. You're already in some ways, to me, the beginnings of the metaverse, right? It's like in the stuff that, with your communities and all this stuff and it's real time, right? It's not, let's do some big studies on the stuff and, whatever stuff. And 3 years later, we'll find a pattern that what problem gamers have. Anyway, we digressed. Back to you.
So I was going to say, just kind of to summarize what you were saying, is that Intel's approach to the discrete graphics industry, like you said, a lot of people are all about numbers, right? They look at the FPS on screen, the frame rate, and they say, well, this card is giving me 120 and this one's giving me 110. I think for the average consumer, once you get past a certain point, there is a level of diminishing returns that comes into play where they're not going to have a different experience because they have 10 more frames. Intel's approach to this appears to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, is match or at least get as close to those levels of performance that their competitors are bringing to the table, but in addition, bring in these new layers of functionality, because it says a lot that you get both the frame rate and this differing experience, this additional function, the layers on top. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong that, I'm a performance nerd, right? So we will continue, 1000%. Driver releases, optimizing frame rates and all. But to me, that is necessary but not sufficient, right? It's like, so that's why these other experiences like Deep Link Stream Assist and several other features we will talk, right? XeSS is one thing we talked about before. There are things like that I think if Intel comes to the into the fore? What value, what additional contributions are we making to the gaming community?
I think it's important that consumers know that, because they're going to need a reason to answer the question of, why do I buy Intel's discrete cards over competitors? Now, before we keep going, there's a lot of information. I want to make sure this is clear for the audience too, that we could talk about performance numbers, and I could ask for statistics and all those kind of things. Those are going to be covered obviously by the numerous websites that do performance evaluations and all that. That's not why we're here, because I know somebody's going to say, well, why didn't you ask why does it outperform the 3090 by this percent, that kind of thing. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the basis of what Intel's discrete graphics setup is going to look like. How do you see it progressing in the next 2 to maybe say 5 years? Usually people are loyal to a brand because they know what to expect each time they upgrade, or there's new drivers, new software, or whatever it happens to be. So it would be nice, I think, for the consumer base to know what to expect from ARC in the next 5 years.
Great question. And as an architect, me personally, right, that we plan multiple generations ahead, right? And we recently kind of gave those code names, and we kind of mentioned it outside. Where the first architecture that is going out in soon was called Alchemist architecture. We have a bunch of D&D fans in our inside
myself
Intel.
Included.
Yeah, and the next one is codenamed Battle Mage, and after that we have an architecture that's called Celestial, and beyond Celestial we have another architecture called Druid. We are also building some interesting layers of software, right? I talked about the Deep Link Stream Assist, but we are also working on other kind of interesting software for gamers that give them ability to leverage your GPUs, okay, in I know the right words to say it, but kind of in more interesting ways than before. Let me put it this way, because I don't want to go too far ahead in.
We can't leak too much detail. Yeah, it's not finalized yet.
The thing that I always talk, I talked to my son about this, right? So I got him a PC, and earlier this year in January, right? My friends at AMD, right? That they sent me a 6800 graphics card. And so my son's friends came to know. It's like, hey, you got a cool graphics card. Can we come and hang out with you and play with you and all this stuff? Of course, it's COVID time. I said, no, you can't. You can't have all this. Anybody coming in. But what if you could have given access to your PC remotely to your friend to go kind of try Cyberpunk 2077 on it, right?
Okay.
And the stuff. So just I'm kind of teasing some experiences.
That's a pretty. I was gonna say that's a pretty big experience statement to infer there, because that's meaningful for a lot of people.
Yeah, but since you asked a 3-4 year kind of stuff, right? It's not immediate 2022 thing, but we are working on things like that, right? Beyond kind of hey, really good architectures, right? That it continue to improve performance per watt, performance per dollar, more memory bandwidth, more flops, more frame rates. Those are kind of the usual kind of laundry list, but there are things beyond that on the kind of the software experiences as well in our 3 to 4 year roadmap.
Now I want to clarify something, just because I heard you mention it, and I think it's important for people to know. One thing that I know people very much enjoy from like NVIDIA, and I know AMD probably does this too, is direct work with game developers on upcoming products to make sure things are working out of the gate. Is that a thing that Intel is doing?
Oh, absolutely, right. That's one of my largest investments, and we've had several top-notch game developer industry veterans to run those programs, and kind of
Yeah, that's. I just want to make sure on the record that that's out there, because I know people will ask about that. Are you guys planning on implementing your version of DLSS on your upcoming GPUs? For things like DLSS, ray tracing? Talk to me about those kind of things. Those are like those are like the sprinklings, the fine touches on graphics for gamers.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. By the way, that whole space of DLSS, and we have a technology called XESS, right? So that's XE is the architecture, hardware architecture, and so I'll just kind of quickly summarize the differences, right? So it is like DLSS, but we are doing it completely open so that you can implement it on NVIDIA cards, AMD cards, and Intel cards, so that
We love that.
the algorithms are all fully open source and the software stack. So when we go and enable a game developer, our goal is that it just works everywhere. But we did one step better, which is it's not me personally did it, that the engineering team that did it, and I'm really really proud of them for doing this. What they did was they said, if you don't have that neural net hardware, they have an implementation that gets to almost similar quality, not quite all the way, but it's kind of way better than you running at some crappy low resolution, right? But for the older hardware too, right? And they put lots of effort in fine tuning that the math and the algorithms to kind of not need a lot of computation but get a really good quality. So there is that mode in XeSS as well.
Right now, the biggest thing that I see, especially from my consumer base, is I can't find a card. Nobody can get a hold of a card. It's out of stock everywhere. So what is Intel's plan?
We are manufacturing both inside Intel, right? We got huge foundries, right? And we are also manufacturing the first range of Alchemist GPUs will be manufactured at TSMC as well. So we have flexible capacity strategy, both internal foundries, external foundries, right? Which kind of puts us in a unique position, even if you think like 4 years, 5 years. By the way, from where I sit, Dr. Lupo, this shortage situation seems like it's not just transient. It'll be there for a little while. By the way, one thing that is unique about Intel coming in versus the existing players is that our current market share in discrete graphics is 0.
Yep.
Right. So my goal and our goal as Intel for the first few years is not the financial incentive. We need to get an install base.
Oh yeah.
With in-gamer machines, right? Some interesting enough install base, because then the ISVs will pay even more attention to us. The game developers will pay even more attention if there is enough install base. So my priority is to get a good enough install base, right? So my GPUs sitting in a mining farm are no install base. They don't show up anywhere, right? So it's
that's not doing anything for the business as a whole.
Yeah, so that's why it's very myopic for me if I just think about the thing. So that's one part of the answer. The other part of the answer is that we do think this whole blockchain, I'd call it, whether which coins are good or that's a whole separate session we should do at some point of time to nerd out. But I think blockchain as a transaction thing that is run much more efficiently than the current kind of the burning of hardware cycles is something that we are working on. Okay, and that's not a GPU thing, so don't kind of confuse it as it's a GPU thing. No. GPUs will do graphics, gaming, and all those wonderful things, but being able to do much more efficient, blockchain validation, at much lower cost, a much lower power, and all is a pretty solvable problem. And we are working on that, and at some point time, hopefully not too far into the future, we will kind of share some interesting kind of hardware for that.
I want to touch on the enthusiast level implementations that people are going to see across the board, and this one is a little more personal for me because I've always been a big fan of it. But NVIDIA has SLI, which turned into NVLink. AMD has Crossfire, and some of those technologies have kind of fallen by the wayside. This is the implementation of multiple similar tier GPUs with a link connector across the top. Does Intel have a function similar to that where maybe there's a GPU-CPU crossover where there's like benefits of running an Intel GPU and an Intel CPU? Or on top of that, do you guys have multi-GPU configurations that are possible? Talk to me about the benefits of running that style hardware.
This thing has been a personal passion of mine to solve. Okay, personal passion of mine to solve. How can you do scalable multi-GPU, okay, that works no matter what game you throw at it, okay, that scales in this stuff. So a few technical barriers exist, few kind of foundational technology barriers exist, right? So today the way we do the two GPUs, like two cards that sit in a, in the system on two PCIe slots, the bandwidth between them is inadequate to solve all problems, okay? So I've been, like I said, passionate about solving that problem and getting bandwidth between chips that is equal to the bandwidth the chip has to its local memory, right? So if you take a GPU today, you have a GPU, it's surrounded by like a GDDR memory, right? Very high bandwidth memory that's usually 300 gigabytes per second or more. If you get similar bandwidth, 300 gigabyte per second bandwidth between cards, then the dream can be realized, right? And then, right, today the PCIe bandwidth is like, at best you get like 18 gigabytes per second or something, right? A factor of like 15 or 20 lower than what you have local. I like, when we look at my 4-year roadmap, right, is this a problem that I'm passionate about solving and getting the bandwidth? Absolutely. Will it be there tomorrow with the existing technologies? We can do software, right, to kind of do those hacks. I call them hacks, and make a few games run and all those stuff. But it's not really kind of, a full solution. And I continue to work on that. And I think, before I retire or die, whichever happens first, right? I'd like to get that problem solved.
Now, the last question, probably the most important question of the entire thing, Raja, will the GPUs be blue?
I'll get in trouble with my product department for saying anything about like how the color or the shroud and all. But if I had let's say all the superpower, like if I'm the only decision maker, Dr. Lupo, it will be blue. Okay,
it better be, man.
By the way, that's because it's my favorite color, right? It's such favorite color. It's not because of Intel, right? Even before I came to Intel, that I'm such fascinated with that color blue that I even named my daughter Blue, right?
Really?
In Sanskrit, not
that's incredible.
English blue, right? Her name is Neela, so that's kind of the fun stuff.
How appropriate would it be if we finally had in the discrete graphics market R, G, and B, right?
R, G, and B, yeah.
It kind of writes itself.
I hope my marketing people, they are listening to this stuff, and they'll do the right thing. And
well, Raja, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. Thank you for enjoying some ice cream with me today as well, and answering these questions for my viewership. I hope people are as excited as I am to see what Intel has to bring to the table, and I cannot wait for sometime in Q1 2022 to see what Intel has to offer, performance numbers, obviously, as well as additional functionality that we talked about today. So thank you again for your time, and I hope you have a great day, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you.